Well, hello. Welcome to this reaction video. I think I'm gonna be doing more of these because I watch way too much YouTube content, and I'm not. It's just for fun, and I should probably be making some bank out of it. Today we're gonna be reacting to Alexander the Great in Quran and Middle Eastern myths. This is by Kings and Generals. I love this channel. I watch it all the time on my free time, and the reason why I'm wearing this Bernie hat today is because I just woke up. I was doing some homework, and well, my my freaking hair was a mess. So let's just get on with the video, guys. I love their animations, man.
Even greater stories and legends. Alexander, whose very epithet is the Great, inspired many. Such was Alexander's influence throughout history, that from Europe through the Middle East, Mongolia, and even...
Well, something that's cool is that, well, growing up, I watched Alexander the Great all the time. Like the movie. Oh my god, it's such a great movie. So I watched it all the time. Because my middle name is Alexander, as it is for many people. And so I kind of, I tried to embody what the name meant. And, I was greatness and all these things, right? Of course, I was a kid. Nothing significant happened, but it was kind of cool. It was like it's part of my identity.
Stories about him and his deeds. As the main theatre of his conquests was West Asia, it is only natural that Alexander played a significant role in the lives of the people living there, influencing the region and its oral and written traditions even centuries after his own death. This video will cover the depictions of Alexander in Muslim, Iranian, and Jewish mythos.
Well, I'm pretty sure that for at least Jewish history, Alexander was a pretty big blow. I'm pretty sure that it was Alexander who desecrated the temple in Jerusalem. So
by this point, you've probably watched everything on your streaming services, are bored, and are in need of more content. Well, getting unfettered access to the world's streaming content is what our sponsor NordVPN can do for you. Geo-blocks are a thing of the past when you log in through NordVPN.
Now, of course, I'm not sponsored by VPN, but I did get VPN like a year ago. Really good. But here's the thing. Actually, I tried using it with Netflix and like to change the location, and it wasn't working. I don't know. I guess Netflix got really good at
being stuck with your country's limited
VPNs.
version of Netflix. Log in from any country you want and watch the good stuff only available to that region. But more than that, NordVPN protects your private information from would-be data pirates as it encrypts and routes your IP address through one of its
funny. I don't
thousands
use
of servers located around the
NordVPN
globe.
anymore.
Big data companies, government
just because
bodies, everyone these days seems to want a piece
the
of your
data's
precious
kind of
browsing
slow.
data.
I don't know,
NordVPN helps you
the
navigate the internet
ISPs,
safely
they're
and
kind of
securely.
like
It never logs your data and protects your information
they kind
in
of
public
block
spaces
it,
by
man.
using
They
double
make the
data
data
encryption.
so slow. They
It's
make the
super easy
internet
to
very
install and
slow.
log in to the international server of your choice before you start web browsing, and you can get it from $3.71 per month. So get yourself safe, unrestricted access to the world's content today. Christmas special offer for our viewers: get 4 months of premium VPN for free when buying a 2-year plan, and save 68% by going to
I bought the 3-year
nordvpn.com/kingsandgenerals
like a year
or
ago.
clicking the link in the description. Don't forget to use the coupon code KINGSANDGenerals. Communication between the Islamic Middle East and the Christian West has been somewhat crippled since the time of the First Crusades. However, this was not always so. The interaction between the different cultures and their willingness to share knowledge brought about some of the greatest advancements of human society. Through these lines of communication and cultural exchange, the figure of Alexander the Great was translated from historical reality to a legendary hero. So the Jews and the Arabs of late antiquity and the early Middle Ages also admired Alexander, incorporating him into their own legends. As Islam became the dominant religion in the Middle East in the 7th and 8th century.
Well, here's the thing with especially Islamic culture, and I've been kind of exposed to it. Growing up, it's this fascination with the West, especially ancient and classical culture. I mean, when Mehmed took Constantinople, what was the drive to take Constantinople? It's to embody what Rome and the Greeks were, to embody greatness. Of course, it was under Allah, but it's still relatively the same. You know, it's relatively the same.
The legend of Alexander the Great made its way into the Quran as well. In the Islamic holy book, Alexander is thought to be represented by Dulcanine, a righteous hero who traveled the world and brought peace to troubled lands. Dulcanine is considered to be a powerful, gifted and ambitious ruler who achieved greatness not only in his country but across the entire world. It is said that when Dulcanine reached the place where the sun sets, he came upon a desperate people who told him of the perils that they suffered because of Gog and Magog. The people offered him tribute in exchange for him erecting a barrier that would keep Gog and Magog away. Dulcanine built a huge wall of iron, lead and copper, which Gog and Magog could not penetrate until Allah lowers it and the end of the world comes. The identity of Gog and Magog has been a matter of intense debate for centuries. So obscure are the references to them that researchers cannot agree whether they even represent two distinct rulers or a ruler and his nation. Depending on the period, various nations and people during history were identified as Gog and Magog, the first of which were the ancient Scythians. During the early days of Islam, it was most often those people that threatened the heartlands of the caliphates that were considered to be the bringers of evil, the Turkics, Vikings, and finally the Mongols. For centuries, historians, theologians, and others have been trying to decipher who Dulcanine was, and many notable rulers have been identified with him, including Alexander the Great of Macedon, Cyrus the Great, Darius the Great of the Achaemenid Empire, and several pre-Islamic Arabian rulers.
Here's the thing, I don't think that Dulcanine has to be a real figure. I think he can be an embodiment of all these figures, definitely. I think that would make more sense. It depends how religious you are. For example, I'm not religious at all. I'm certainly not from the Islamic world. So when you really read about these stories, it should be inspirational. You know, it's literature. That's what it is. It's the embodiment of all these figures, and you know, Darius and Cyrus and Alexander and, you know, all those to come. You know, the embodied world conquerors, brilliant rulers, as he puts it. So
Alexander, being a brilliant ruler and conqueror who went to the edges of the known world and established a kingdom spanning from east to west, was favored by many notable Islamic scholars, including Ibn Sina, Al-Razi, and Abu Hayyan. A possible reference to Alexander may be in the very name of the hero, as Dulcanine translates to the two-horned one. The two horns of Dulcanine could be an allusion to the pilgrimage of Alexander the Great to the oracle of Zeus Ammon in the Siwa oasis. The ram horns of Zeus Ammon were adopted into the iconography of Alexander of Macedon as a symbol of his alleged direct descendants from Zeus Ammon as son of Ammon, like the pharaohs. The lifespan of Dulcanine is not mentioned either, indicating that he may have perished quickly after his campaigns, similar to Alexander. The mythical barrier built by Dulcanine has also been a popular topic of literature, especially during medieval times. As the barrier is theorized to be located near the Caspian Sea, along the route of Alexander's expeditions, it became known in history as the Caspian Gates or the Gates of Alexander. Its exact location remains disputed by scholars. Though there are several possibilities, we will mention only the most important or likely ones. One option is the Great Wall of Gurgan, a 195-kilometer-long defensive structure found on the southeastern coast of the Caspian Sea. It is one of the largest and most ambitious defensive structures ever built. However, it was neither as functional.
can I say something real quick? So if you just look at the map, it reminds me of Middle Earth. It really does. Honestly though, you know, the mountain ranges and like the plains, and then the Caspian Sea, of course. It's funny, the geography, especially, well, this is, you know, the Middle East, is quite extraordinary. Because here you have the arid plains to the north, you know, where the ancient horse lords used to be. And into the south, you get into the mountains, the rivers that flooded the plains. Of course, they could be arid, but it's there. It's really, truly marvelous.
Functional nor as well preserved as the Great Wall of China. Its purpose was most likely to defend Persia against the nomads of Central Asia. Another option is the Darial Gorge in the Caucasus Mountains. The name is derived from the Persian term Dar-e-Alan, the Gate of the Alans. It is known that the mountain pass was fortified many times in history, usually by the Georgians and Sassanids, who used it to defend against the Sarmatians, Turks, and Alans. Some historians consider Alexander as the first person to fortify the gorge. However, there is no proof of that. The third and most popular choice would be Derbent, where a strong line of fortifications stretched for tens of kilometers in between the Caspian Sea and the Caucasus Mountains. The fort was most likely built by the Sassanids and held great importance during the rule of Khosrow Anushirvan. The Sassanids are most likely to be responsible for the building of each of these structures. However, Alexander was given the lion's share of the credit for many years. One explanation could, once again, be the popularity of Pseudo-Callisthenes' Alexander romance in the Middle East and Persia during the Middle Ages, and especially during the rise of Islam. Due to the fact that the Caliphate fought many wars against the Sassanids, and that they were seen as enemies, it is possible that their impact was neglected in favor of an option with greater mass appeal. The earliest written texts that associate Alexander with Dulcanine are Quranic commentaries written by Wahb ibn Marabi, who describes him as a hero sent by Allah to conquer, who would, upon completing the wall, learn to control the aggressive impulses innate in human nature. Al-Mubashir of Cairo later on explicitly identifies Alexander with Dulcanine, and mentions how Darius, after being betrayed by his nobles, died in Alexander's arms and lectured him on how to be a good king. Others wrote that Alexander was a philosopher king who travelled to India to seek knowledge and wisdom. In those versions,
Here's the thing with the philosopher kings and all this thing. It might be true, he was trained. Who was it? Aristotle? Aristotle trained him. He had the mind of any Greek intellectual of the time, certainly. But I think his conquest of Persia was just Greek ambition. It's just what the Greeks had dreamed for years, ever since the Greco-Persian Wars in the year 400, 480. Like 3 invasions of Greece that happens when just a few months before the conquest, the Battle of Thermopylae, or Thermopylae, whatever you want to call it, the Persians had invaded Macedon, so you kind of expect this revenge type of ambition to be ingrained into society, especially at the time. I'm sure that Alexander was intellectual. Alexandria in Egypt became the center of intellectualism. And he founded the city, But of course, it was the Ptolemaic kings afterwards that brought so much intellectualism and writing and literature and all these things to Egypt. And Alexandria became the center of learning, of education in the known world.
Alexander was accompanied by philosophers instead of his army. He would engage the Brahmins in debates on the topic of metaphysics and demonstrate his humility and devotion to God. In other legends, Alexander is said to have been visited by the Archangel Gabriel, who instructed him to ask the sages for the location of the Fountain of Life. Alexander subsequently left for a fabled dark realm, where he met the Green Man of the Quran, Al-Hissr. The immortal man told him of the exact location of the fountain, only for Alexander to return home by his own volition after failing to find it. Seemingly, most medieval writers follow the same template when it comes to Alexander. In the first part of the stories, he is always represented as a great warrior who conquers the entire world, while in the second part, Alexander always realizes the morality of the emptiness of all human ambitions and endeavors, subsequently becoming a humble and pious man. What gives the myth of Alexander as Dulcanine more credibility in modern times is the discovery and translation of one 18th century manuscript from Timbuktu, which offers many details about Dulcanine's campaigns, the building of the Caspian Gates, and Gog and Magog. Besides the Quran and the Hadiths, the manuscript is heavily based on the Alexander Romance, one of the most popular texts of the Middle Ages. Therefore, it is safe to assume that its author, Abu Abd al-Malik, favors Alexander as Dulcanine as well. Ferdowsi, whose Shahnameh is the greatest Iranian epic, diverges from the usual pattern and describes Alexander the Great as a famous dragon slayer. During one of his adventures in Abyssinia, Alexander came upon a city that was left at the mercy of a nearby dragon. In exchange for not having their city burned down, the citizens had to sacrifice some of their cattle to the dragon each night. Alexander tried to kill the dragon with his army. However, after failing to do so, he devised a cunning plan. His men would gut the cattle and fill their insides with poison and oil. The dragon, unaware of the Trojan horse, or in this case cattle, devoured the sacrifice and was killed by his own flaming insides. The successive transformations suffered by the figure of Alexander in Syriac, Middle Persian and Arabic Islamic literature have formed the basis for the creation of Alexander's figure of a rightful Persian king of kings as he appears in the epic poems of Ferdowsi and Nizami. This image of Alexander as Iskandar Dulcanine only evolved after the Arab conquest of Persia, most likely influenced by the Romance. This Arabic-Persian Alexander is integrated by the Islamic poets and scholars of the Persian language into their Iranian history as one of their greatest heroes. By doing so, they deliberately choose to forget the less than pleasant Old Persian and Middle Persian image of Alexander. In Zoroastrian traditions, Alexander is perceived as a destroyer of the good religion and of the true kings and nobles of Iran. This image of the bad or accursed Alexander the Great is constructed according to the Zoroastrian religious principles. The true Iranian kings ruled through the grace of the supreme creator god, the righteous and good deity Ahura Mazda, and Alexander was a demon sent by the evil one. What is interesting is that the earliest surviving Persian written works about Alexander were from the late Sassanid era, so it is quite likely that this path of the legend is based on oral tradition. It also explains why in those works, Alexander is called the Roman. Considering that Alexander is presented as a great villain for the Zoroastrians, and so little was written about him during the time, it seems as if in pre-Islamic Iran, a damnatio memoriae Alexandri Magni occurred, the erasure of the memory of Alexander. In spite of this, we should not conclude that there was only a bad image of Alexander in pre-Islamic Iran, as in a letter by Artabanus II to Emperor Tiberius, there was a phrase in which the Parthian in fact reclaimed from the Romans the territories and lands once ruled by the great Achaemenid kings of old and by Alexander the Great. This indicates that at least the Parthians saw themselves as successors not only to the Achaemenids, but to Alexander as well. One very peculiar relationship is the one between Alexander and the Jews. Considering how both the Jews and ancient Greeks were renowned for their record-keeping and writing, it is a surprise that they scarcely wrote anything about one another during Alexander's life. Perhaps this could be attributed to the fact that the conquest of Judea was relatively bloodless. The first detailed mention of Alexander is by the Jewish Roman writer Josephus in the 1st century.
Wait, so I was wrong? I swear. Oh no, it might have been Vespasian, the one who sacks the temple. Okay, I got it now. No! He... he destroyed... Under Alexander, the Ptolemies and Seleucids Jerusalem capitulates to Alexander the Great during his 6-year Macedonian conquest of the Empire of Darius, without complication. What? Oh, okay. Fuck me then.
AD. In Josephus's writings,
I was
there
wrong.
are three
Oh, well.
aspects of Alexander. The first aspect is of Alexander as the neutral universal king/conqueror. The second aspect is one of Alexander as the evil ruler, whose descendants oppressed the Jews. What was his story? Alexander the Great was a prolific conqueror who, in only 13 years, managed to destroy one of the greatest empires of antiquity and expand Hellenic power and influence throughout the known world, even as far as India. Alexander's legacy cannot be understated, as it reaches far beyond his military achievements. Some of the cities that he founded survive to this day, and after him, diverse and distant parts of the world became economically and culturally intertwined. Consequently, it is of no surprise that so many legends about him still persist, some probably even concocted by Alexander himself during his life. A man who connected the East and the West during his lifetime continues doing so even more than 2,000 years after his death through the stories that people share. We always have more stories to tell, so make sure you are
So growing up, right, and like watching the movies and reading about Alexander, I'd always get these thoughts in my head about conquest and glory and all of these things, right? Because it's super cool to think about them. It's freaking amazing. So Rome 2 Total War came out in the year 2013. I think it's 2013. I played that game nonstop, even though I played it on my laptop. That sucked, and I played it on my PC that was like 10 years old. Mind you, it was 2013, so it was like from 2003. Yeah, I loved Alexander. I still love Alexander. The story is just amazing. One of unification, of conquest, of a philosopher king, is just amazing. So I think this is it for now. You guys should really go check out the Kings in General channel. I might leave I think I will leave the link to the original video. And have a nice day, guys. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope this gets views, because I really want to be doing more reaction stuff. I mean, I watch YouTube videos anyways, might as well record them, and I think I have some good things to say about it. So, alright, have a nice day.